Hey everybody, let's take a look at two really interesting Citizens. My camera only focuses if it's in the center. Two different Citizen Atomic Time AnaDigi watches that both use the same movement, the U680 movement. This movement's been in use in Citizens for a pretty long time, at least 10 years, probably closer to 15. Most of the watches have the label Skyhawk, but I don't think they've always used that. And sometimes they use Skyhawks on the name Skyhawk on other watches. But generally, these are considered Skyhawks. These are two of, I want to say maybe 30 different watches. They've had many generations over the years. This one on the left is steel, and it's still being produced. This one on the right is titanium, still being made. But there are some watches going back that had integrated bracelets, I believe, lots of different colorways, some on straps, some not. I'll try to put some in the description. But basically, I've had this watch for a while now, but I've really never worn it. It's and I'll get into why. I love the way it looks. I think it's really, really busy and complicated, but in a good way. And I dig that. But it is a big, heavy steel watch, and so that's why I've recently picked up this titanium one to see if I can get some use. Why don't we get some measurements on this, and then measurements on this, and then I'll give you a brief tour of the movement. So first things first, this is stainless steel, IP coated, but if you've seen, it'll help if I give you the model number. This is the JY8035-55E. You can still buy these new, and they're a little over $300, but they come on a rubber strap or urethane, whatever it might be. And I have that sitting around, but this is a part from a different watch, the Dash 55E version. And that watch was an exclusive for Macy's. It looked very similar, just the dial was different. It had, instead of orange accents, it had like rose gold and a white inner like track here. Really nice looking watch, limited edition, only sold by Macy's. But that watch came on this really cool bracelet, and I managed to source that. That makes this pretty interesting to me. It has, you see, solid machined clasp here, IP coated, really well made. Why don't we get one of this on? I'm wearing another Citizen for the occasion. That'll be in a future video. You'd have to subscribe to my tiny little channel. I don't review, these are not watch reviews. So you're not allowed to criticize them as being bad reviews, because I'm not reviewing these, I'm just overviewing them. Anyways, here it is on wrist. I think that looks killer. I loved the watch when I saw it in pictures, but it's like, dang, I wish that was on a bracelet. And it turns out that there was this other version that had it. And I think that just looks cool. But it is kind of a big watch, and it's a bit of a heavy watch. And I think it's relatively readable. The things that matter, the hour, the minutes, seconds hand, you see that pretty clearly. But the digital parts are negative display. They can be hard to read. You know, you tilt it a little and you see the light perfectly fine. But I love the color combination on it. It has this like plate on the side. It says its name. It's a Navihawk. That's right. I called these Skyhawks, but some of these are called Navihawks, and there's other watches that Citizen's pretty bad with their naming, in my opinion. They have like 5 names that they use on their 5,000 watches, like Chandler. There's 1,000 different Chandlers, and they use the same. They like use the same watch might have different names depending on where it's sold. There you go. You see my ring light. That's nice. But that being said, I think it's a really nice looking watch. And I'm super stoked that I found that bracelet. That's probably hard to find now. But nice coloring. It's a big watch. So let me give you a little preview of the Lume. I can't make this, and I don't really want to. I can't be bothered to make the room dark. But you see the hands look nice. These inner lights you see, they're kind of like little 3-dimensional pucks. Like those Lume markers, they do extend up a bit. And I think that looks pretty cool. Big watch. The bezel even though it has this like coin edge, it can't be moved externally. So that's 40, do a good job here. This is, yeah, 45, 46 mils. But the watch itself extends beyond that bezel, so it's actually a little bit bigger. It's 48 mils is where I would call that. And that's without these protrusions. And on the left here, you have an interior rotating slide rule bezel. It's actually a compass bezel, you can see, plus a fuel gauge calculator, which is cool, but probably not something that most people are going to use. Certainly not something I'm going to use. But I buy watches because they're cool and not because they're useful. As silly as it sounds, they're fun, right? They're exciting. They're nice to play with. So that's the steel version. Let me get size on that. 14 mil thick, kind of on the big side, not huge though. And 52 mil. Cool watch. I've had it for a long time, but I just don't wear it, in part because of the size and the weight. Also, I think black watches look awesome, but they don't wear very well. Like they start to get scratched, and you see those scratches. Whereas I think bare metal watches, they wear their battle scars a little better. So I've recently picked one of these up in hopes that I actually start wearing this guy, because I love AnaDigi watches. I love slide bezels, even though, as I said, I don't use them. So this guy, let's see, yeah, 45 millimeter, but the size of the bezel is pretty much the size of the case minus the protrusions. You don't have another crown here because the slide bezel is not interior, and I think it's a little nicer. This version has a mineral crystal, whereas this is a sapphire crystal, and it's titanium. And as I said, it's a little smaller, right? It's probably 45, whereas that's a 48 because the case itself is the size of this. A little more readable because it's a positive display. I think the Lume is better on this. I think this is a later generation. This is the most recent. There's different colorways. You can get this on a strap. It's a little different. There's the Blue Angels versions of like both of these. But look at that lume. The hands are loomed. Every index is loomed. You have the 369. I just think that is much more readable, much more usable. Oh, and the mode dial at the bottom has a loomed hand. But the other subdials don't have a loomed hand. Interesting. I have not noticed that before. And of course, yeah, titanium, it's much, much lighter. Like, you feel that difference. These are big watches, so the titanium doesn't necessarily make them featherweight. It just makes them normal weight, if that makes sense. Also have a milled clasp on this one. And that just looks really cool. Nice. So we're 8 minutes in, and maybe I just give it like a brief tour of this. I think this is really cool. You have these two different displays here. The display on the left displays the time zone that you're in, wherever you're traveling, and that's what the time is set to here. The display on the right, it's in date mode or like cal mode, so it's not a screw down crown. You pull out one position and you could kind of go between these different modes. You see that dial on the bottom. I mean, honestly, you could have a 20-minute video just on how to use this. It is kind of cumbersome, but you know, in time mode, we'll go there. Now we have the analog is New York City time, Eastern time, and Pacific time. Is that LA? That's Pacific time, right? That's the separate time right over here. And you can at any time display 2 times, one digital, one analog. Or you can choose to display the date like I showed you before. It has 2 alarm modes, and it has a chronograph mode. And in chronograph mode, it's purely digital. You see it down there. Start, stop. You have a split time. Sorry, the focusing is not so great, but it is what it is. Split, stop, reset. Pretty cool. I like the functionality of it. I feel like you have to wear it every day to really get used to it. One gripe I have is that there's the knurling on these 2 pushers, and it makes it seem like those are screw down pushers. They're not. That's just kind of there. I really wish those were screw in where you can protect those from being used. The button in the upper right is a light button in most modes. So we can probably, you can't even see. There we go, a little bit. Since it's negative display, the LED is orange, but you can barely see that. And on this mode, with the positive display, that lights up. And if it's dark, you really see that. So yeah, definitely an improvement, I would say, but this watch is awesome too. I love the colorway. I love orange on black. It's just a little too large for me, but you know, maybe, I think when I bought it, I wanted that. I wanted something large and loud. You also see there's more going on here on the bezel. There's like an inner ring here with times on it, 110, 120. I'm not too sure what that is. It's not like, it's not a tachometer, so I'm not too sure. And it has the compass ring. This one, they got rid of the compass markings. It's just the fuel gauge. And it's just a lot simpler, a lot cleaner. But I don't know. I kind of like the appearance of both of them for different reasons. But I like the size benefits and weight benefits of titanium. Anyways, those are my Navihawks slash Skyhawks. And I think they're a cool line. If you don't like either of these, but the idea intrigues you, Citizen has like 50 others. I didn't even mention it, but maybe I assumed it was obvious. These are atomic time watches. Probably the first thing you should say. But you set your time zone on these, and they sync up at night, every night, and they have perfect time. But maybe to me, that's not such an intriguing feature anymore because I have so many of those. But I think if you have a watch you want to wear every day, and you want it to be accurate, and you want to have every possible mode you can think of, it's a good buy. A good purchase. And it is a good buy because we're 12 minutes in. All right. Thank you very much.